I'm Robin Sullivan. I'm an artist and creative producer based in Cornwall. My practice revolves around landscape, understandings of prehistoric landscapes, current landscapes, and predominantly the idea that landscape isn't just a physical thing out there, but something that exists within us. So my work manifests itself in large-scale projects, in installation, in performance work, and it is heavily influenced by the communities and people. So my most recent project is called And Everything and Nothing Has Changed. It brought together 4 years research into the China clay landscape, its communities, its botany, its geology and its history, not just throughout the China clay period, but it explored the 70-kilometre winning and working area over a 6,000-year period. So the project really was all about exploring the landscape together and with the communities that live within this area and work within this area. And that was really, really important. It was a huge part of why I wanted to do this. And it was a way to engage with as broad a demographic as possible. They were invited to come on field trips with us. I facilitated workshops in Willow. We built a stone circle. We organised performance evenings with local bands, musicians, poets. I think after 18 months of social isolation, it was a chance for people to come together and celebrate. We kicked off the project this year with an archaeological field trip with Peter Herring. I really wanted that to be the first part of it and to kind of kickstart it as a way to introduce the communities and the people we were working with the history of this area. And it was a way to discuss how landscape is formed by community and culture is formed by landscape. The importance wasn't on the actual final sculpture, but actually about the material, about what it represented, and about the process of making it. China clay is decomposed granite, so a way in which to kind of bring these materials from a landscape back together and form them in a sanding stone. It's kind of everything has changed, but nothing has changed in terms of its material composition. After research, I was designing different kilns that could possibly open up or kind of reveal the sculpture, I stumbled across an Estonian artist called Andrzej Zalik, who designed the petal kiln. And it's a kiln that's shaped like a giant bottle, and it's got 6 or 7 sections that then open up like a flower in bloom when the sculpture is fired at top temperatures. So you've got this glowing red sculpture inside. To me, this was it. That's the magic. This is the moment in which the birthing of a standing stone. I was working with Cultivator in Cornwall and trying to get kind of students involved and giving them opportunities to work with artists at kind of a very different level to maybe they've been able to work before. And as this was the first petal kilns we brought to the UK and we brought it to Cornwall, we decided that the best thing for them to get involved was actually the kiln building itself. So we brought 25 students across 4 different courses to come and get involved in digging the trench and laying the foundation, working with the bricks, relining or lining the petals, making the ceramic buttons, and understanding really the entire process of actually building a wood-fired kiln like this. So we organised a series of clay processing workshops where we're actually then gathering materials from the landscape along with materials that we brought from the China clay industry. And it was a process of, throughout the project, realising what materials we needed to add into it to actually create a robust clay body that could survive that type of thermal shock. So we had to add in different forms of kind of molochite, which is a pre-fired China clay. We had to add different grogs to it. But then also for the green strength of realising that I couldn't build the sculpture in the kiln, but would have to transport it. Also adding 15% paper pulp, which helps with thermal shock resistance, but also helps create kind of like a green strength to the pottery. So the process of actually building the sculpture was going to be coiled. It was the best way to get the detail that I wanted throughout the sculpture and be able to change the form as I was shaping it. It meant that every single centimetre of that thing has been hand sculpted or manipulated in a way to look like something that's natural. The main actual glazed body is actually made from materials that you can find within the landscape here. So it was quartz, whiting, feldspar, and then China clay. Beyond that, it was then adding in different materials to actually start forming a landscape on the actual body itself. Earlier firings, we'd actually built standing stones that looked more like stone. They were much more representative of granite, but I became less interested with that, and it was more about representing what this landscape is. I think a lot was learned during those test firings. It wasn't just the technical skills involved in wood firing, which we did have to learn as we did it. You know, the right type of wood, the length of wood, the thickness of wood, when it's added, when you're opening the doors, when you're closing the doors, how to actually map the temperature correctly. It also taught me what a beautiful thing it is to fire with groups of people together. It brings people together in a very different way. Over the duration of those firings, you are continuously working, and you're working in shifts of maybe 4 hours on, 4 hours off. And it's incredibly hard work. We fired the kiln for 24 hours during that final firing, but the firing was 38 throughout 2 evenings. The plan was always to kind of open this kiln up when it reaches top temperatures, which with the clay we were using in the glazes was about 1,260 degrees. We didn't actually have a chance to open the kiln up at all after that second firing, which meant the first time we were going to open that kiln up with a group of people that had never done it before was going to be in front of 75 people, a band, and all of the people that were involved in the project. Leading up to that final firing, it just rained. The sculpture was inside the kiln was wrapped up in tarps, and then at 9 p.m. we just had to go for it. So we unwrapped the kiln, threw some wood in, and then that's kind of it. As soon as you light that kiln, you were then committed to the fire, to the process. Throughout that first evening, it was slowly stoking the fire. You're only adding very small pieces of wood, and we kept it at around 80 degrees for maybe 6 or 7 hours. And then slowly increased the temperature and kind of ramped that up throughout the next day. By 4 p.m, we were then at closer to 600-700 degrees. There was 14 people involved in firing the kiln towards the end, working shift patterns. And then during this, by about 6 p.m, we then had 75 members of the public slowly arriving. The whole time also then being very aware that in 2 hours' time, we're going to have to open this kiln up. Everyone is stood in position, you're holding onto these petals, and then it's the moment of truth. So you take off the wire, you cut the things down, I count down, and then this thing just opens up like a flower in bloom. And that moment of realizing that 3 years' work of research, sleepless nights, collaboration, the kindness of strangers, the combined efforts and knowledge of so many different people that had to come together to actually make that event what it was and enable us to kind of open the kiln and do the thing that I had envisioned 2 years before. For me, it was the accumulation of years of work, and it goes in kind of an instant. This group that bonded and kind of formed throughout it dissipate, everything gets packed away, but something has changed in the mindset of people that came and got involved, or in the way that people now appreciate this area. It's been amazing towards this end, I think, to be able to look back over what's been achieved this summer. We ran the field trips and the workshops, but it was the engagement and the level of engagement that we received. And I think it's only now towards the end that I'm looking back and actually really appreciating the communities that got involved in this project and how much they threw themselves into the activities that we kind of put together.
Yeah, I've been really inspired by the project. It's really got me interested in local archaeology, the heritage, and I guess like the local industries of the area that I didn't know much about.
To meet people who are actually making it work and to feel like I'm connecting to contemporaries in that way and learning from them. It's just fantastic, so it's brought me huge benefit in that way and it's really helped my practice.
I've had the opportunity to do these amazing things, but then also it's then given me that opportunity to discuss all of our interests and the interests around the topics around the project as well. It's been, yeah, it's really opened my eyes. It's been wonderful.
What I've learned here and developed here over the last kind of 5 months, over the last 3 years, is something that I'd now like to kind of take forward into other sites across the UK or on a global level, exploring botany, geology, food, culture, community, music, landscape. I was amazed over the last 5 months at actually the engagement we have had and kind of the positive impact it seems to have had within people's lives. Whether they came to one workshop or whether they've actually been involved in the project on a day-to-day basis over 4 or 5 months, it's been kind of amazing to actually build its own community. Someone mentioned that the project has done what a Standing Stone did, which is bring all these people together across a landscape to think and to share and to celebrate. It's been amazing.